The progressives are running the Democrat agenda now in the House of Representatives to think that that bill wasn't enough spending for them shows just how far left they are. I mean, this bill raised every tax imaginable on small business. It expanded welfare beyond any normal liberal's imagination, and yet it still wasn't enough for those 9 ultra-liberal Democrats.
Who do you think ends up caving?
I think that in the end that the progressives are going to get what they want because they're not going to budge. Nancy Pelosi can only lose 4 votes. Thank goodness the Republicans are sticking together, and I had my concerns that we could do that, but we have. And I feel like at the end of the day, they're going to have to pass something. Their base is restless, and at the end of the day, I think the moderates will cave. Okay,
but if progressives get what they want, then tell me what you think is the bigger picture here for precedent going forward.
Well, it's a terrible precedence what we've done, allowing the Democrats to be able to get to this point. There's no debate. You're talking about a bill that we honestly don't know at the end of the day how much it's going to cost. There was no debate as to who's going to be affected by the tax increases to be able to pay for the bill. We don't think it'll even come close to paying for the bill, but it does raise a significant amount of revenue. And our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves if they saw how there was no regular order, there's no transparency. This is being negotiated by people that have absolutely no appreciation for finances and no concern about the national debt.
There's also the question of when. I mean, Jillian and I were just talking about when is this going to happen, if it does happen at all. Here's Molly Hemingway on that. Listen.
The Biden administration keeps putting forth these arbitrary deadlines or dates by which they want something passed without dealing with the actual fundamental problem, which is not only was Biden elected not to do this type of spending. In fact, polls show that people are not looking for increased spending at a time they have such economic concern.
You agree?
I do. Inflation is affecting everyone. People are starting to understand that if the government continues to print money, then inflation is going to continue to increase. So I don't think there's a sense of urgency by the average American to see the Democrats continue on their unlimited spending spree. So I think that a lot of Democrats are sitting back and they're going to watch the political environment. They're going to see what happens in the Virginia governor's race. If that flips to Republican, then that's going to be a sure sign that things are not going well for the Democrats, and a lot of Democrats care about self-preservation. So, at the end of the day, they may not be able to pass anything, but if anybody caves, in my opinion, it's going to be the moderates, because those progressives, they have stood their ground all the way through in this. They want to spend more money. They want to see a socialist economy, and that's what this bill leads to, a socialist spending spree.
I've never seen anybody win a bluff like this in all my years of playing poker. I don't play that much poker, but I digress. Congressman, there's also this. I thought I was a little too bleary-eyed when I read this morning. I thought there was something wrong with my comprehension, but no, the Biden administration is considering paying illegal immigrant families separated at the border about $450,000 per person. Look, the Biden White House is already incentivizing people to come here illegally by not sending them back. What the heck is he thinking, throwing a cash prize on top of that?
This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the average American is going to be furious when they find out about this. This news was just breaking yesterday. Our phones were ringing off the hook. We were getting calls on this. People are mad. I mean, $450,000 for people who are here illegally, who've been separated. I mean, it's not our problem if people get separated. It's the priority. It should be the priority of the federal government to secure that southern border. Every decision Joe Biden's made since he's been president has made our border more open to illegals. And once again, Joe Biden prioritizes the rights of illegals over the rights of tax-paying working Americans. And it's just hard to imagine that a president would have this much disrespect for the rule of law. And our border problem is only going to get worse. I mean, if you're incentivizing people to come over here with ridiculous sums of money, I mean, we haven't seen anything yet. that.
Yeah, and the claim is that the policy has caused them lasting psychological damage. The total potential payout could cost $1 billion or more. Who foots that bill?
I mean, the taxpayers are going to foot that bill, and it's shameful. I mean, this makes you believe that Joe Biden wants illegals to come across the border. You always have these theories that say, oh, this is Biden's reelection plan or the Democrat reelection plan, and you're like, well, that's probably not true. But every decision that he's made would lead one to believe that. And if you're incentivizing people to come through, that's terrible. Just this week, he tied the hands of our Border Patrol agents to where they can't arrest people that come across the border. They're not deporting people. It's madness. And this problem's only going to get worse. The drug problem's only going to get worse. Human smuggling is only going to get worse. And I think the American people have had about all they can stand of Joe Biden's liberal socialist agenda. And this open border policy is just another bad decision by Joe Biden.
By comparison, I believe it was your colleague Dan Crenshaw who said the family of a slain service member gets about $400,000, so less than what this current payout is to people who don't fight and die for our country, but simply come here illegally. What is the family of a slain service member supposed to think when they see that?
I mean, they have to be just devastated. I'm angered, and I think that every American will be angered when they find out about this. I mean, these families, these illegal families should get zero. That is what they're entitled to, zero. Any serviceman or woman that puts their life on the line and gives the ultimate sacrifice, you can't put a price tag on what they should be entitled to get. But anyone that's over here illegally, again, is entitled to zero. I think that's the sentiment of a majority of Americans and Republicans. They're going to do everything we can to block this. But, the majority that the Democrats have in Washington now, it's really created a lot of problems in the last 10 months. Hopefully they'll continue to argue amongst themselves on not spending enough money over how many trillions more they need to spend, how much more they need to increase welfare. But this open border policy beats anything I've ever seen, and this payout is it's insulting to every American.